So here we are. I'm here because I believe in this ministry. With all my heart, all my soul. I came back. My schedule, Air Force One, I get so much stuff going on. And I said, find a date where I can come back because I believe in what you do. I believe in what you're trying to do because I learned something. God sends you through something, to something, to do something. That everything you go through in your life is a down payment on your destiny. Nothing is wasted. Every teardrop, every broken heart experience, every rejection, every failure, every setback, every blown up opportunity, everything you go through in your life is a down payment on your divine destiny. That God says, as he said to Joseph, and Joseph said to his brothers, what you meant for evil, God is using for good to save many lives. You didn't put me here, God did. And when you go through stuff, say stuff, it prepares you to help people out of their stuff. How you going to help somebody if you ain't been through nothing? It's like me trying to sell hair grower to you. I know hair grower works. I know extra grow works. I'm telling you it works. How do you know, Dr. Archer? You was bald as a baby's butt. But when you have survived it, when you have come through to the other side, when you've crossed the Jordan, when you've come through the Red Sea, when you've been through hell and high water, when you can say like David, I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, but thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff. When you can talk about where you almost died, almost wanted to just quit, just throw up your hands and walk away, just say this ain't worth it, and yet you made it through. Now you can talk about amazing grace. Now. So I'm connected to place of grace. In my heart, in my soul, in my mind, I'm connected to a maternity house. In my state where I grew up, I am connected to them because I understand the people that they serve. Now, people look at my resume, PhD, writer of best-selling books, movies. I've done all kinds of stuff for Jesus. Spiders and monkey brains. But no one would have believed I would be here right now talking to you. Not me. Not this kid. Let me tell you a bit about my background. Dr. Charles Cooley wrote a book called The Looking Glass Self. And in that book, he said these words, I am not what I think I am. I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. I don't tell you who I am because you may not like it, and it's all that I have. Do you understand what it feels like to live in shame? To be ashamed of your life, to be ashamed of your family, to be ashamed of your story, to be ashamed of your journey, to be ashamed of what you have been through, thinking that if people really knew who I was, they would reject me. Shame. I grew up in a bubble of tremendous shame. You see, when I was 10 years old, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I tried to blow my brains out with my mother's gun. I took my mom's gun and put it to my temple, closed my eyes, and pulled the trigger, hoping that life would cease to exist for me because I thought death was better than life. You ever been that low, that destitute, that broken, that dysfunctional, that place of darkness and despair that you just wanted to die? Not just as an adult, but as a child. Come on, y'all. 10 is a time to be dreaming of being an astronaut, a football player, a pastor, whatever it is you want to be. But for me, here was my thinking. If the next 10 years are like the past 10 years, I don't want any more years. The pain of my past and the fear of my future made me want to die in the present. My mother had put a safety on the gun. I didn't know how to dislodge it, so I couldn't pull the trigger successfully, but I just wanted to die. Why? See, that's why I don't judge people, because you just never know what they've been through. You don't know. That's why people of God, be careful with your mouth. Speak encouraging words. You might be next to somebody who is thinking about ending it all. They're on the edge. They're on the verge. They're going through some difficult stuff. They're dealing with addiction. They're dealing with abuse. They're dealing with alcoholism. They're dealing with family dysfunction. They've just been laid off. They just had a child that died. Something has happened to them. They've been sexually abused. You just don't know what people have gone through. Show some love and mercy. Because here's what I learned about life. A storm is either right with you now, just leaving, or on its way. That's life. A storm, which we call in my business, a significant, traumatic, overwhelming reasonable minds. Significant trauma, overwhelming reasonable minds. And there are many people right now. Maybe it may not be you, could be your kids, your grandkids, your in-laws, outlaws, who knows? But there's a storm. Could be a financial storm, could be a relationship storm, could be a marital storm, could be a career storm, could be a health storm. But everybody has their fair shares of storms. But the one thing I learned in my storms is you can't run away from them. You ever think about how a plane takes off? It weighs so many tons, a plane that's heavier than air, that it has to turn, and the nose of the plane has to face the storm, has to face the wind. And you go against that because you have the law of gravity that keeps the plane on the ground. But when you face the wind and you're determined to go to it and not run away from it, there's something called the lift of aerodynamics that takes that plane and lifts it above the ground and kissed the face of God. That's why David ran toward Goliath, because God was with him. When we know God is with us, we can turn and face those things that once were our shame, and they become our testimonies, they become our witness, and we lead other people to Jesus. But unlike many of you who are in this beautiful sanctuary praising and worshiping God, I grew up in a family of atheists. There was no Bible. There was no prayer. There was no praise and worship. There was no hallelujah. My family hated God and hated the church. What happened to us to make us that way? Well, my family is a descendant of immigrants. My grandmother is German. She was tall and pale and white and blonde hair and blue eyes. She was so tall and skinny, her nickname was French Fry. That's how she looked. My grandfather was the total opposite. He was from Cuba. He was a purple black man. You ever see somebody so black that they're purple? In the Sudan, when I went to the Sudan, I've never seen such blackness. I mean black. There's not even a hint of light. There's just light is absorbed in the blackness. That's what my grandfather was. And we called him, because he was big and charcoal broiled, we called him Hamburger. And Hamburger met French Fry in Cleveland, Ohio, and they made a happy meal. They got married, and they produced 7 McNuggets with special sauce. Everyone looks different. When you combine a German, white French fry with a black Cuban patriot together, man, the DNA dice just go crazy. We have one that looks white, one that looks Mexican, one looks Guatemalan, one looks Cuban, one looks English. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's the United Nations in one family. I got one uncle who looks like a Mexican bandit, man. Name was Uncle Buster. When I played football, he'd come to my football games, with his leather jacket, his hair in a ponytail, with his beard, looking like a biker. And he'd come up there. His gun was in the back of his pants, I went to this all-private white school. I got a scholarship there. And he's coming to my football game, and he's walking up the stairs, looking like a knuckle dragger, coming from the primal pool of ghetto-ness. And he's walking, and his gun pops out. But then it was back an aluminum stair. Pop, 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 and he goes down. He said, looked at everybody. What's up? NRA, baby. Went and got his gun, put it back in his thing. It's true, man. So let's talk real. We're family. Now we know we come a long way as a country. My goodness, a long way. But back in the day, it wasn't too cool for a big black purple man to be married to a white woman. You know, in the deep South in the 30s and the 40s, they would lynch you and kill you for that. In the North, there wasn't violence, but it wasn't kind of socially acceptable. You weren't being invited to any country clubs. And that's how it was. And so they dealt with it and handled it and built their house and did their thing and with their 7 kids and became American citizens, and everything was great. So one day, my grandfather said to Granny, we're going to a restaurant called the Hofbrauhaus, a German eatery in downtown Cleveland, because Granny loved German food, being a, Deutschland, Fräulein, from the land of Germany. And they get their Wiener Schnitzel and Sauerbraten and all the stuff they eat, and they come out, and for the first time, they're publicly together, walking arm in arm as husband and wife, living the American dream. Started with nothing and built something. But on that fateful day, another man was there from Alabama. And he didn't like to see this purple black man with this beautiful white woman. It went against everything he was taught and believed about life and society, even the church. And he walked up to my grandmother and he said, ignoring my grandfather, he said, why would you be a nigger lover? Why would you love a big black nigger like this? You're beautiful. And my grandfather, being Cuban, had a little temper and took his fist and went back to Cuba, came up through Florida, picked up speed in West Virginia, took a shortcut in Pennsylvania, and met the man's jaw in Cleveland, and all you heard was kapow, wow, 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 wow. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. He broke the man's neck with one punch. Thank God the man didn't die, but let's be honest, when a big black purple man does something like that, it's not going to end well for him or his family. He's in the papers, he gets convicted, he goes to a jail. You know about this jail, Mansfield Reformatory. Yeah, somebody claps. Yeah, I'm a graduate, baby. Mansfield in the house. Yeah, man. And how many have seen the movie Shawshank Redemption with Morgan Freeman as the narrator? That film was made at that prison, at Mansfield Reformatory. That's where Grandpa was, man. And in the summer it was 120 degrees, winter was 20 below zero, and that's where he did his time. He did the crime, he had to do your time. But Granny now, they heard about her, and she got fired from her job. She worked as a manager at Woolworths. Best milkshakes on planet Earth, man, back in the day. Well, bad publicity, you got to go. So Granny, being a German woman, not complaining or having a pity party, woe was me, didn't have time for that. 7 kids to feed, so Granny begins to clean houses, and then she had fainting spells. She would faint in her car, faint at the job, and this went on and on and on, and finally went to the doctor and said, something wrong with me. I can't work, I can't drive, I'm fainting, and I don't know why. And they took blood and did all the tests and checked the cerebellum and all those things that they do diagnostically to make sure, what's happening. And they discover she has a cancerous tumor that is growing behind her left eye and metastasizing, spreading to the frontal lobe of her brain. My goodness. When it rains, it pours. The doctors say, we think we can save your life, but here's the prognosis. We're going to have to take out your eye, take almost all your face off on the left-hand side. There's cancer there, and it has spread a bit to the frontal lobe. You got to cut that off. So you have one eye, half a face, and indentation in your forehead. But you'll live. What do you do? What do you do when you're 35 years old? 7 kids to raise, husband's away, you're by yourself. Because back in those days when you were mulatto, half white, half black, the blacks didn't like you, the whites didn't like you. You were by yourself on an island. Of course, she has to have the surgery. And they take off half of her face, all the muscle and the tendons and the sinew and the flesh, and take out her eye and take out a little slice of her frontal lobe, which changes her personality, controls your mood. And when she's done, oh my goodness, she's hideous. She looks like a monster. She looks like something that just came from some kind of a horror movie. And she's depressed, she can't work. And when you don't pay your bills, you don't pay your house note, the bank doesn't say, oh, it's okay. We understand. It's a business. We gave you a loan, you signed for it, you can't pay it. We're going to take the property back until you get by. They got evicted. And they lived going from shelter to shelter and homeless places, and it just was a mess. And my uncles were so angry with society, they became heroin addicts and joined a game called the Devil's Disciples. And I mean, it was demonic, it was evil, it was rough, it was angry, it was nasty, it was criminally based. And they were 12 and 11 and 10, shooting heroin at that age. Now, my mom was 14 during this time. My mom looks like Sophia Loren. My goodness, my mom is just a knockout. She has all those beautiful traits from both sides of the racial spectrum. Olive skin, long black thick hair, just curvy everywhere. But ladies, we know through life sometimes beauty in the wrong situation can be a curse and not a blessing. She's 14. And always there's a predator in the ghetto looking to take advantage of people. And there's a guy named Larry who's a pimp. And he sees my mom. He knows the story. He knows the struggles of the family. And he says, hey, you, come here. I know your mama's dying, your daddy's in jail, and your two brothers are hooked on heroin. What are you doing for your family? You're 14 years old. What are you doing? You're the oldest. What are you doing for your people? I can help you, woman, to save your family. Because you don't know something. Girl, you are sitting on a gold mine. She's 14. Where? We're poor. No. Hear me again, girl. You are sitting on a gold mine. Where? You're sitting on it. Let me help you mine this gold. What do I have to do? I own a nightclub in Cleveland, and I got some businessmen who come to my club after traveling, and they just need somebody to keep them company. Have dinner with them, do a little dance, that's all. We'll buy you clothes, give you some jewelry, you look like a movie star. Give you some high-heel shoes, girl, give you some style. Give you some je ne sais quoi. You just got to show up and look pretty and be who you are, because nobody looks like you in this neighborhood. And I'll pay you $100 a day. You can help your mama, you can help your daddy, get your brothers straightened out, get a place to live. I will help you save your family, but you got to help me help you. Okay. You see, that's what happens to women. That's why I love this ministry, because my mom said to me later on in life, she said to me, honey, you just don't know how people will treat you when they know you have no place to go. When they know there's nobody for you to turn to, nobody to say help, nobody to say, help me. What people will do to you when they know you have no place to go. It's in the Bible. Remember the stories? We read the Bible, we sanitize it. Remember when Joseph and Mary were coming into Bethlehem, and the Bible says there was no room at the inn. We think of Motel 6, Holiday Inn. No. When you do your exegetical hermeneutical study, you understand the word inn means guest house. They were going back to their families. They had family there. And when they got there, remember, Mary was betrothed to Joseph. They weren't yet married in the story, but she's pregnant. Oh, dear God. Scandal. An unmarried pregnant woman coming to our town. I don't want that kind of scandal. I don't want that kind of headache. You know what? Y'all got to go to the barn. You got to go to the manger, because we have no room in our house. Now, she's very pregnant. Who's going to tell a pregnant woman that she has got to go where the maggots and the feces and the animals and the fleas and the flies and the dung is? But that's how they viewed a woman who they felt had no place to go. That's why this ministry is so important. That's why having a place for women who are in crisis, who are pregnant, have a place to go, to have dignity. The Bible says he came unto his own, and his own received him not. He was born in a funky, nasty, dirty, filthy barn. And what was his crib? An animal feeding trough. Because nobody wanted to get involved. Nobody wanted to be scarred and stained by the scandal. That's why the Pharisees even told Jesus, at least we know who our Father is, hinting to his controversial human conception from their standpoint. And Jesus said, as you treat the least of these, you do unto me. He understands a mother who's pregnant and afraid. He understands a mother who is pregnant, has no place to go. He understands a mother who's being told, go to the manger. But get out of here. We don't want that around us. We don't want you near us. But that is how Jesus' mama was being treated. And I can tell you one thing. When I wanted to kill myself because of my family's dysfunctionality, one woman, a new teacher in my school named Mrs. Spears from Mississippi, old white lady, she said, baby, God don't make no junk now. We gonna talk about the Bible. And you know what? You're in the Bible. And she had me read Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4. And the Lord said, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. And before you came forth, I set you apart. God didn't make no junk. I'm here by divine design. Yes, I was born a trick baby. That's what happens when a prostitute has a baby. They call it a trick baby. Yes, I was born as a trick baby, but I can tell you with great confidence, the trick was on the devil. God had a plan. God had a plan. God had a plan. So I'm here to, I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what has happened in your life. I don't care what people have said about you. I don't care what controversies and what failures you've experienced and what setbacks you've had and how your family was dysfunctional. Somebody was an alcoholic and beat you. Somebody abandoned you and rejected you. I'm here to tell you today, if you have been rejected, you're next in line for a miracle, because man's rejected is God selected. Remember what I'm telling you today? Failure is never final. It's not the falling down. It's the staying down. When something knocks you down, land on your back. Because if you can look up to God, you can get up in God, never give up on God, because God won't give up on you. He won't give up on you. So I became a pastor, a businessman. Made my first $1 million in business as a businessman, presidential advisor, church planter, bishop, all those nice titles. But I wasn't happy because my mama wasn't saved yet. So my first church, I'm preaching on Mother's Day. We call it in the black church Big Hat Day. Every black mama wears a hat big as a space saucer. You don't see faces, you see hats. If the wind came in, they'd all be flying to Mars somewhere. And there was this old little black lady in my church. She'd sit in the front row. And I'm a young 23, 25 years old preaching. And whenever I preach, she'd sit there and go, fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. What am I fixing? Am I a mechanic? I'm just trying to preach. But she's been fix the broken. Heal the brokenhearted. Give sight to the blind. Set free those who are in captivity. Fix it. Fix it. So my mother's there for the first time in my church, and I had my sermon. God said, do not preach that. What do I preach? Trust me. Go to Hebrews chapter 11 and just read it and listen to me. Now I'm a preparation freak. I've never done this before. So I close my prepared sermon and I follow the Spirit of God and I go to Hebrews 11 and I'm reading it and I realize, oh, it's the chapter called the Hall of Faith. All the great men of God are there. David and Gideon and Moses and Abraham, Isaac and Jacob and Joseph. All these great patriarchs are there. But after all the men are listed, there are only 2 women in that chapter. Sarah, the mother of the Jewish people. Who else is in the book of Hebrews? It was a woman who wasn't Hebrew, who was not holy, who was not righteous, and yet she's in the book. Rahab, the prostitute, was in God's holy hall of faith. Because of her faith, in spite of her past, in spite of her profession, in spite of her sin, she believed in the God of Israel. And she had faith to risk her life to follow him. And because of her faith, she was brought into the family of God. If you read the book of Matthew and you read the Bible, Rahab, who was not Jewish, was not Hebrew, was not holy, is in the lineage of Jesus Christ. And when my mom heard that God was a God of the prophets, the God of the disciples, the God of the patriarchs, but also God of the prostitute, my mom came to Jesus that day. Oh, yes. And I baptized my mom, and she came forward, and mom became a new creature. She became like the Apostle Paul. She began to evangelize the strip clubs and the hookers and the drug addicts, and got a big van, brought everybody to church because she's the oldest, and told them, get in this van, right? We're going to see Jesus. What did I say? What did I say? And we had this whole new group coming to church, and we're a Baptist church, and my deacons got a little nervous. Pastor, we need to establish a dress code, Pastor. I'm here to tell you something. I'm Exhibit A. I come from the sewer, the ghetto. I come from the garbage of life. Yes, I was born a trick baby, but the trick was on the devil. We tricked the devil. And if you are here today and you've been through some stuff, that is the background God uses to reach the broken and the lost. If you think that God cannot use you, that is a lie from hell. If you think you're not qualified, God has never called the qualified. He qualifies who he calls. God uses imperfect people to reach other imperfect people, which is a perfect work for his glory. Because when God can take a drunk or an alcoholic or a prostitute or anything that's not good and shine it up and take care of it and renew it, he gets all the glory. It says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, but we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. He gets the glory from your story. He gets the glory. And it is your broken story. It is your struggles. It is what God did for you and through you that draws people to him. No more shame. No more being less than. No more being disqualified. No more feeling rejected. But God has prepared you to be used for his glory.
Each week we receive calls from all over Ohio, places like Cleveland, Toledo, Columbus, Mansfield, and Akron, just to name a few. We hear stories about renewed relationships with Christ, hope restored, and people being refreshed by the message. Help Storyside, help Ohio. Help us transform lives in your community. You can do this by giving financially to this ministry, by logging on to StorysideChurch.com, by downloading the app, which is free on the Apple and Android devices, or you can text the number on the screen to give. Remember, we can't buy our way into heaven, but we can help someone else get there.